Hey, Prime members! Are you tired of ads interfering with your favorite podcasts? Good news! With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free podcasts. That's amazon.com/ad-free podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Today's episode is going to be a really fun one. Now, get this. When I was growing up, my family always had dogs. They were either medium or large dogs, and never would I have imagined of having a Chihuahua, or as I said back then, those yappy little rat dogs. Well, fast forward several years, and guess what? I got this puppy, a very small Chihuahua. Now, I really thought I was giving it to my kids, but lo and behold, I, markakyle, had my very own, as I used to say, little rat dog. Her name was Bella, and she went everywhere with me. Now, I want you to picture this. There's this pretty tall guy running on a trail with this tiny little dog running along with me. Now, you should have seen the stares and the looks I got. It really was pretty ridiculous. Well, guess what? I was becoming a big, huge Chihuahua fan, and a totally big one now. In today's episode, Linda Hempler, she joins me. She's the founder of Chichis And Me. Like the name, I love it. Anyways, she's taken her love for these mighty little guys and made it her life's passion. We get into the history, where Chihuahuas come from, where the name came from. We debunk some of the myths, and so much more. Did you know they're the smallest dog breed in the world, and they go way back to the Aztecs? Now, Linda has a story to tell, and it's a great story, and how best to understand them, and so much more. So get ready to learn all about these small but mighty, lovable rat dogs. And as the saying goes, the best things come in small packages.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and gains, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, markakyle.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the For Real podcast. Today, my guest is Linda Hempler, and guess what? She's here to talk about these big, huge, ferocious Chihuahuas. Well, at least I think they're big and ferocious. Hey, Linda, thanks to the show. I can't wait to get this on. As you know, I've owned Chihuahuas in my past, so this is a fun one for me. And really, thanks for taking the time to be on.
Well, hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
By the way, I love the name, and I've told you this before when we talked, but I want to say this for the guests that are listening too, is I love the name of your website and your I guess it's your organization at this point, ChiChis And Me. It's the best name ever, by the way. I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
So I thought what we do is start, and I always try to do this for everybody that's listening, to tell them a little bit about your background, how you became a champion of these little monsters that are awesome dogs, and just kind of talk about that.
All righty. Well, first of all, I did not have any pets growing up. My mother grew up on a farm, and, she was all about, I love animals as long as they're outside.
Sure.
So I really didn't grow up with any pets. But I was not working anymore in about 1995, I think it was. And I just didn't feel good most of the time. And I had a friend who had a dog. It wasn't a Chihuahua, but another dog. And she told me about how much comfort it was and so on. And I started thinking about, maybe I want a dog. And so to make a long story short, my husband was totally against it. But he was, because of our lifestyle.
Sure.
He said, for traveling and so on. By the way, Chihuahuas are great little travelers. But anyway, so my stepson, I was telling him about it and how his dad said no. And he asked me on the phone, and he said, well, if you had a dog, if you could have a dog, what breed would you want? And I mentioned several, but believe me, a Chihuahua was never, ever on my mind. Like most people, I had always heard they were mean little yippy dogs. But anyway, the next weekend we went to visit him and my daughter-in-law, and they have uh, Great Danes. They've always had Great Danes. And at that time, they had Bono. And so when we arrived at their house that weekend, around the corner comes this great big Great Dane, and right behind him, this teeny tiny itty bitty Chihuahua puppy. It was hilarious. And my husband, of course, fell madly in love right away. And so it was not an issue.
Well, you know what? That almost sounds like a cartoon. A big Great Dane and Chihuahua almost sounds like a cartoon.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's cute.
So Don, my husband, fell in love with him, and I fell in love with Chico. We named him Chico. A friend of mine said, who was knew Spanish, she said Chico is an endearment in Spanish for small.
Well, first of all, I want to interrupt you for a second. I'm just sitting there thinking something. So your husband fell in love with it, and you have Chico. So you got Chico and the man now? So anyway,
Yeah,
exactly.
really didn't think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, Chico and the man.
But she told me that Chico was an endearment in Spanish for small. And I thought, oh, how original. That'll be so cool. So I named him Chico. And then I found out that every male Chihuahua in the world is named Chico, and every female is Chica. So much for unique, right?
Well, it doesn't matter. Your animal's always unique anyways. I like the name.
Exactly. They all have their own little personalities. So, and then 3 years after I got Chico, we got Pebbles, who started out as my youngest son's dog, but he moved into an apartment that didn't allow dogs. And so we got him, which was fine with me because he was going to have to fight me for her anyway.
Well, Pebbles is from Flintstone, and that was the little child. So is that where Pebbles came from?
Not really. She had little spots on her
Oh,
back,
cool.
and my son thought they looked like little pebbles.
That's cute.
So that's why he named her that. And when I'd take the two of them for a walk and I'd say, this one's Chico and this one's Pebbles, people would say, why didn't you name him Bam Bam?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, then about, I don't know, I'd say it was the very end of 2015. I thought how cool it would be to have an online diary about me and my life with my Chihuahuas. Thus the name ChiChis and Me.
Oh, okay. Now we didn't get into that. I love I love stories, and I love this names to story a story with a name. I really like that. That's great. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it did then. So anyway,
It does now too.
okay. I'm glad you think so.
I do.
So I thought at the time maybe, 10 people would maybe read it occasionally, friends and family. But it grew. It started growing. And then in 2017, we traveled to South Carolina for a blog convention, a pet bloggers and influencers convention. And there were people there, and our pets were invited. So Chico and Pebbles went with us, and the place was this hotel that we stayed at. It was all inclusive, so they all stayed at the same. Everybody stayed at the same hotel, and then there were pets of all different kinds. There were guinea pigs and even a rat or two, and cats, of course, and lots of dogs. And yes, there were other Chihuahuas there too.
Okay, real quickly. So the reason you went there is because you started that blog, it grew real big, and you said, "Man, I'm going to do this thing." Is that kind of what I'm going to learn how to do this well? Is that why?
Well, not at the time. Well, yeah, basically it was, but at that time it hadn't grown a lot, but it was growing. It was more than my friends and family. And so, yeah, I heard about this convention, and I thought, oh, that would be fun, just basically fun, and I'll learn a thing or two about blogging. So that was the reason. So, but when I got there, I met, people from pet companies from all over, and people from all over the US, pet parents and bloggers and influencers all over the US, and some from other countries too. And I met pet company representatives that I work with still today.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we learned a lot about blogging too. But it was there I realized, because I had learned through my searching for information on Chihuahuas, because, like I said, I never had any pets. I'd never had a dog. So when I got Chico and Pebbles, I did a lot of researching on dogs and Chihuahua breed. That time, the internet wasn't real popular, but anyway, well, I guess it was in 2015, wasn't it? I take that back. But anyway, so I did a lot of research on the breed and so on, and I had learned that Chihuahuas were the second most often euthanized dog breed, second only to pit bulls. And neither breed, let me say, are inherently aggressive.
No, they're trained. It's the way they're treated.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of reasons for it with the Chihuahua breed specifically, and I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah, because I want to dig into that, because I know you mentioned when we talked a while back ago, but it doesn't make sense to me, and that's why I want to get into it here in a minute. But I would have never guessed that. I can see the pit bull thing. I can see the pit bull thing. I can understand that. The Chihuahua one, I can't, but I have a couple ideas why I think, and that's what I want to ask you when we get there.
Okay. But anyway, so when I was there, I would mention that to people, and like you, every one of them would say, "What? Really?"
Yeah.
They didn't believe it. And when I told you the other day this, I thought, it's really been a long time since I've actually checked recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so I double checked. And yes, the statistics are not out yet for 2024, but in 2023 and clear back to 2013, as far as I've looked, Chihuahuas were second, pit bulls first.
That just blows my mind.
I know. It did me too, and it did lots of people. But that's when I realized, oh my goodness, I can do a whole lot more with my blog than just talk about me and my Chihuahuas. I can educate people, because I have spent lots of time and energy researching the Chihuahua breed. And, as we all know, you have to be really careful where you get your information.
Oh, yeah.
Because not everything on the internet is true or accurate.
Right.
And so I was really careful with my information so that I knew that what I was telling my readers was true and accurate. Anyway, but so that's when I learned, or when I realized, that I could help educate people, and maybe, just maybe, I could change that statistic about Chihuahuas.
Make a difference.
Yes, that I could make a difference. And that was the whole point from then on of my blog.
So you start off with passion. Now you got passion and a mission, which is really cool.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. I am very passionate about Chihuahuas.
Well, there's no doubt about that one.
All my friends and family will tell you that. In fact, sometimes nowadays, if I'm talking to friends or family and I bring up Chihuahuas, you can just see their
eyes go back. Oh, here we go again.
Yes.
That's funny.
Exactly.
That's funny. So anyway, so you built this blog, and how often do you do it?
I try to keep up with it like twice a week. I also started a YouTube channel, and it's just me. A lot of people on YouTube that are really successful, they have editors, they have social media. It's just me here. So I realized that I still want to do some YouTube videos, but I'm just not going to be able to keep up with it as much as I did for a while. But my blog, yes, I try to post at least once a week.
So when you're doing it, and this is for, I'm sure you'll have some of your people that are on the blog, but for people that don't do, what kind of subject generally are you just doing, like medical advice or just pet advice? What is it? Just kind of like in a thumbnail sketch of what it is.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of the information on there could apply to any dog breed.
Okay.
So it's all about health, nutrition, training, and behavior. And so I write about all those subjects and all different things about those subjects. I could never run out of subjects to talk about Chihuahuas.
Well, welcome to the podcast world. There's so many animal things out there that, everybody's, what about content? I said, there's plenty of content. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
There is. But as I tell everybody, you're not necessarily going to get, well researched, accurate, and truthful information. But you can on ChiChis and Me.
To the best of my ability. That's what I always say.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But the bad thing is, when I say that, when people know me, they say, well, that means it means nothing. But anyway, the ability, you're talking about you? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm really careful about where I get my information and do the very best I can to make it accurate and truthful.
So let's do this. I'm just sitting there thinking while we're talking. I want to get back to the blog towards the end because I have some other stuff in there. But let's talk about the history of Chihuahuas and really get in there because, I found all kinds of really cool stuff when I started doing some of the research on there. But I want you to talk about it. And then I'm going to bring up some stuff to see. I'm sure you know, but if you don't, there's one in particular I was blown away with, which I thought was really cool. So let's just get into their history, what and I'll interject anything that I might have seen that's relative to what you're saying.
Okay. Well, basically, what I know is, supposedly they came from a tiki. I think it's called a tiki.
Well, here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I read that. So
Yeah.
when you were telling me where your name come from, ChiChis and Me,
Uh-huh.
what you're talking about, it's spelled TECHICHI. And I'm thinking, to Chichi. I wonder if she got that from ChiChis. That's where ChiChis and Me came from.
I did not. I told you where that came from.
Yeah, but I know, but if you think about it, how clever were you in doing that? You didn't even know it when you did it at the time, but that's what I'm thinking. I wonder if that's where she got her name from.
Oh, that's cool. I'd never put that together because I think it was later after I started my website, actually, that I learned about that, the Chichi dog.
Serendipity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess.
And also remember what I said, I don't have any ability. So when I see weird things, I just bring it up. So well, there we go.
So, well, basically, I don't know any more really than everybody else does on the internet because it's really murky exactly where today's Chihuahuas came from. But basically from Mexico.
Yeah, I knew that from the state of Chihuahua.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting too, because when I was looking at it, they were saying that, I went to a variety of different sites, but nobody seems to know how far back they go. I think the one that I saw was sometime during times of Cortez and the Aztecs, like 1500.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's as far back as they go, actually. To the Chichi dog and from the Aztecs. The Aztecs, I had heard or read that they kept them as little, companion dogs. And then in the 18th century, I think, in the 18th century, they were used as hot water bottles.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't read that. I knew that because I had Chihuahuas because they love to go underneath the blankets.
Oh, they do. And yes, absolutely. They will warm up your feet real well.
Well, one of the things I think is crazy because one of the things I read too back in the Aztec times that they were considered sacred, and a lot of the royalty have it in the hot water bottles that you're talking about. Because
Right.
back in the days, the royalty, what they would do is heat up stones, and then when all the rich people, they said, "Well, we'll just get those Chichi dogs, and they'll crawl underneath and keep my feet warm, and they stay warm."
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
It's kind of cool.
And again, nobody really knows for sure, but yeah, that because there's many different ideas or many different information, much about Chihuahuas and where exactly they came from.
Right.
But basically what you said, that's it.
Well, I saw a thing too that I think I can't remember. Let me look at my notes real quick. But I think they were saying in the Aztec times they found in old scrolls or maybe painted on a wall or something, but that they actually used to raise them and sell them. They find out that they'd call them small dogs. They didn't call them whatever, but they assumed that those were probably the Chihuahuas.
At what time did you say when?
Right around the Cortez Aztec time, that time frame,
Oh, really?
back in those days, that's where they found it on some written thing, whatever that may be, a scroll or on a wall or whatever.
Yeah.
But they were talking about how they have markets where people were raising these small dogs and selling them way back then. So that's probably when they really started becoming their thing.
Well, that's something new to me. I had not read that. But I also read that that they came over here during the 17th century from wherever, from China or something. So
Really?
yeah, like I said, there's just so many different theories that I don't think anybody really knows for sure.
Which is fine. I mean, I mean, what's the cool thing too is the Chihuahua. I think they said it back then, is the smallest dog in the world.
It is. Yes, it is. And I want to talk about that later. I want to talk about mini Chihuahuas and teacup Chihuahuas.
Yeah, let's do.
Yeah.
So let's go back. So moving forward, and we'll get to the teacups and the mini teacups and whatever else they're called.
Okay.
So moving forward, let's just go through the chronicle history that you know, and I'll just interject if I read something. Doesn't mean I know it, but whatever I read.
Well, basically, like I said, they came over they were raised in the Aztecs, and how they came here, and how we came up exactly with the Chihuahua that we have of today, we don't really know. Some people say that they had bred. I've forgotten what the name of the dog was. It wasn't a Chichi. It was after that, but they bred it with a Mexican hairless, and yeah. So, there's no way to know really for sure how they came here.
Because there's two different kinds of Chihuahuas. There's the hairless Chihuahua, and then, or not the hairless, the short-haired and the long-haired, right?
That's correct. And there's also the apple hair or the deer head.
Yeah, but I think, tell me, can you go explain that a little bit? Because it's really the applehead is really considered in the AKC standards. That's their deal. They don't really like the deer head one, or
that is correct. Yeah. Well, they say the deer head one isn't a real purebred Chihuahua, but that's what they say.
It's through like DNA testing or something like that.
Yes, the AKC only allows certain colors. And they allow the short-haired and the long-haired, but it has to be an applehead Chihuahua, and they have to be 6 pounds, no more or less.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't read that.
Yeah. So, and a healthy Chihuahua can be anywhere from 2 pounds to 10 pounds, actually.
Well, that's the problem with AKC, in my opinion. But regardless,
yeah. Well, like I said, if you're going to register your dog and have it show, if you're going to have a show dog, or if you're going to enter in the competitions, AKC competitions and so on, then yeah, you better stick to their standards. But most people don't care.
No, most people, they just want a little rat dog. What I call mine.
Yeah.
Here's a little tidbit that I read. So the first dog that was registered, and I've read two different ones, but I'm going to go with this one. There's a specific reason why I want to go with this one. Was in 1904. The name of the dog was Midget, but he was from, I'm in Austin, and Midget was from Texas. So I think that's probably the original one, just so you know.
That's correct. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, it's from Texas.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm going, oh, well, that works.
Yeah. That's where the most modern, show dogs came from, is from.
Yeah, well, that's the very first one that became I guess they became a recognized breed, is what they call it, or something like that.
Yes. You're
Yeah.
right.
But they were
Exactly.
from, just so you guys know listening, they're from Texas. They're part of our dogs now, just so you know.
That's right.
That's funny. I love that part. So anyway, so moving forward, and one of the things too, so in AKC, it's only a few colors, but they have, I think what I saw something like, I think it's 40 different mix and match colors that they have, something like that. Do you know that?
Yeah, Chihuahuas come in a variety of colors. They accept most colors, I think, but they do not accept a merle Chihuahua, which is particular pattern of a Chihuahua or a brindle. There are brindle Chihuahuas. They're not real common, but there are.
Sure.
But yeah, but most colors and patterns they accept, I think, but not the merle, not the anything that's not real common. They do not accept.
I don't really understand how that works. I mean, but I mean, a Chihuahua is a Chihuahua to me, whatever it is.
Exactly, and I've never bred Chihuahuas, so you know what the AKC says really it does not matter to me.
Right, right. Well, I mean, and again, for people that are show people, I get that. I mean, that makes sense.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And people who show their dogs really care about their dogs and they breed dogs out of love and caring.
Right.
And, they're not, yeah, we won't get into, I guess, unless you want to, about the puppy mills and backyard breeders and so on.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back. We are supported by PrepVet, providing stem cell therapy for pets.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FURREALPODCAST, covered by most pet insurance.
So one thing I read too is, and I want to get in and talk a little about, let's just talk about the dogs today. And I saw that the record of the smallest dog on record was a dog by the name of Millie that was 3.8 inches tall and 1 pound. And that's registered as the smallest one. I'm sure there's people probably have other ones out there. And then the smallest length that was recorded is 6 inches, which think about that, 3.8 inches and 1 pound, that tiny little thing.
Right. That tiny.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Cute though.
But yeah, if you want to get into that, that's part of the teacup Chihuahua thing that we can talk
Well, let's stay there and get there. We can bounce all over the place. There's no rules here. That's for sure.
about. Okay.
So they talk about the teacup and the mini teacup. I have a feeling where you're going to go with this, but let's talk about it.
Well, number one, as you said, Chihuahuas are the smallest dog breed, period. So there is no toy Chihuahua. There is no mini Chihuahua. I've even heard micro Chihuahuas, teacup Chihuahuas. There's just no such thing. And I think today, most people, when they say teacup Chihuahua, they just mean a small one.
A baby one, yeah. I mean, I've seen some tiny ones. One thing that I read too, that I'm going to interject on this, is that what happens oftentimes when there's a litter, that the sizes can be drastically different. They don't come out like, there's always like a run or something like that, but they're saying that, at least this is one thing I read, is that you can have a big one, a little one, a medium sized one. They can all be a variety of different sizes. It's just that's what happens.
That's correct. They can be a variety of different sizes and different colors.
So you've got this guy this guy who's a breeder or whatever. So I'm going to raise these teacups. Well, he may not have a teacup when he come out there.
Well, the thing is, how it got started is unscrupulous breeders,
Of course.
who came to realize that most people wanted the smallest Chihuahua, the runt of the litter. Every litter has a runt.
Right, sure.
And so most people wanted the runt of the litter, and it was the most popular. So they thought, well, let's make more money with this. So they started breeding the runt with the runt with the runt, trying to get the
Right.
smallest ones. And the trouble with that is that's the reason I said a healthy Chihuahua can be anywhere from 2 pounds to 10 pounds.
Well, I was going to say the smaller ones generally, even runts generally aren't as healthy anyway. So now you're interbreeding these animals that probably aren't healthy.
Exactly. So, when they do it that way, yes, they get less and less healthy, but it was all about making money for them. So, they can say, these are teacup Chihuahuas and charge twice as much or more, 2, 3, 4 times much.
Well, it's funny. I think I told you uh, I had a Chihuahua, and I got this, and I've always had big dogs growing up, so I never ever thought I'd have a little rat dog ever, and I love them. So when I say rat dog, I mean it in a nice way, not in a bad way.
Yes, exactly. The same here.
They're rat dogs for sure. But anyways, I was at a gas station here in Austin, and this guy had these puppies in the back, and he goes, "Do you want one of the puppies?" And and her name was Bella, but she was so tiny, and I called my wife at that time and said, "I got this is really cute Chihuahua. You're interested?" And she goes, "Well, whatever you want to do." So
Yeah.
my daughter had a volleyball game that day, and I've got this tiny, you would have thought a teacup at that time. Now looking back on it, I think she was probably not, she probably wasn't 8 weeks old, not completely weaned,
Yeah.
but she came to that game and all the girls quit playing volleyball to see this cute little tiny thing. She would prance when she walked because she was so small.
I know.
But I paid for it too. So I bought her at a gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of those guys, probably a puppy mill guy. I probably bought it.
Well, a lot. You'd be surprised how many people still today don't know about puppy mills.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I wanted to tell you, you were talking about Bella, so I wanted to tell you that we lost Chico and Pebbles in 2020 and 2021, but now I have 4, and I had gotten Remedy in 2015 from an acquaintance that had a litter, and they were unique. They had unique markings, and what Remedy is a blue merle Chihuahua.
Mhm.
And I got her in 2015, and then after Chico passed away, I was working part-time at that time. I was working part-time at a veterinary hospital here in town, and where I live. And I worked there for quite a while, part-time. And while I was there, I met a lot of local rescue organizations. And one in particular I want to mention is where I got my 3 Chihuahuas. I now have, I still have Remedy, and I have Cora, Winston, and Liliana, or Lily for short. And I got all 3 of those from a rescue organization called FLEA, FLEA,
Great
which
name.
stands for the love of every animal.
Oh, I love the name, but for Chihuahuas, it's a perfect name for them too.
Yeah, true. But she rescues all different breeds, cats and dogs. But this is a one-woman powerhouse woman who rescues dogs. She has even rescued sick and injured dogs, and she brings them back to health. This woman has the biggest heart of anyone I'd ever met in my life.
And what city are you in? Where is she in? What city?
I live in Derby, and yes, the hospital is in Derby, Kansas.
In Kansas.
Yeah, it's just south of Wichita.
Are you guys in a state of depression after the Super Bowl yesterday?
Oh my goodness, don't talk to my son today.
Oh,
No.
that's funny.
My oldest son, he was a Chiefs fan from long before they started
Yeah.
winning.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he was pretty sad last night.
Well, they've had a good run anyways. That doesn't mean they won't be back next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But anyways, we digress. Anyway, so you're outside of Wichita. So I'm just the reason I bring it up for people listening, flee. If you're looking to help somebody out, you might probably have a rescue in your area. But if you don't, I mean, this may be place you should look up. Anyways, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And she is very good about, I mean, she has taken injured and sick animals to K-State to have them, operated on and so on. And she does all of this on her own with her own money. Of course, she gets some donations, but and then she makes sure that these dogs have not just good homes, but wonderful homes. And she's very particular about who her dogs go to. And so I just wanted to give a quick shout out.
Well, that's good. And you should, by the way, and good for her.
Yeah. For Suzanne and Flea.
I love the name Flea. I won't forget it.
So I've got my 3 Chihuahuas. I've got 4 now, and 3 of them came from her. I love them all to death. They're all different. All dogs have different personalities.
Oh, they do.
Yep.
And let's get into the personalities of Chihuahuas, and I can attest to it too. I mean, they definitely think they're Great Danes, generally, but they're not as mean as everybody tries to make them out to be at all. As a matter of fact, they're protective of their owner, but they're generally pretty friendly, at least my experience.
Yes.
And I know that there's a misnomer saying, because they're yappy, which they are, because they think they're bigger than they are. They got to, it's like anything small wants to, protect itself. And that's what they're doing. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, it depends on how you look at it. They don't really think they're bigger than they are. They know their size, and but they're fear aggressive, and that's the reason for the aggression.
Right.
Is that, like you said, they're loyal, they're protective, and they're loving little dogs. And but they're fear aggressive, which just simply means that when they're afraid, that's how they cope.
Right.
They think that the meaner and the badder they sound, the more they're going to scare away whatever they think the threat is.
Hey, I read something, Linda. Is this true? I read that because it's not my experience. I read that Chihuahuas really, the term they use, cliquey. They love to hang out with other Chihuahuas, but they prefer to hang out with other Chihuahuas and other breeds. And my Chihuahuas have been around every kind of breed, and they're the friendliest dogs to all the dogs. I've never saw that.
Yeah, my dogs are too, and it's true. But they do get along well together as the same breed. But I think maybe that's where that came from. But they get along with all different breeds of dogs, yes.
Okay, let's talk about one of the things they're notorious for having, because my daughter right now, she has a Chiweenie, and his name's Patrick, and he's old and basically has no teeth left. And Chihuahuas are notorious. Matter of fact, when I was reading about it, 3/4 of them get gum disease because their mouths are so small and their teeth are crowded. So can you talk? I bet you that's been in your blog for sure. I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about it.
Yes, I talk about that a lot because it is an issue with Chihuahuas or other small breeds too, but specifically, like you said, you see Chihuahuas with no teeth.
And they got bad breath too, horrible breath.
and their tongue hangs out. You see that a lot in
Chihuahuas.
Yeah. As young as 3 years old, they can have gum disease, periodontal disease is what it's called. And they have the same number of teeth in their mouth that a Great Dane has in its mouth. That's 42 teeth. And in this tiny little mouth, they're all crowded together. And so there's no room it's a breeding ground for plaque and for bacteria and so on. And so it's extremely important if you have a Chihuahua to get their professional dental cleaning at least once a year, but actually every 6 months is best for a Chihuahua.
I bring this up every now and then in the podcast because I spend a lot of time in veterinary clinics with my stem cell company, and it's shocking to me, almost without exception, if I'm in the back of the house where in a clinic, There's always a veterinarian that's doing teeth work. They're almost more dentists than they are anything else. It's unbelievable how much they do.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And I was going to say, one of the things when I was reading about their teeth thing, they were saying, well, as a puppy, start brushing them. I can tell you right now, like my daughter's dog, Patrick, that dog he'd gum me to death now. There's not a chance in the world he would ever let me brush his teeth. Never going to happen.
Yes, I know. And that is so true of most dogs. But the secret to that is if you're fortunate enough to get a puppy.
Puppy, that's what it said. Start when they're puppies.
Exactly. But even as an older dog, you can what's called condition train them.
Mm-hmm.
And all that means is that you do very slowly help them to disassociate your brushing their teeth from something scary and awful to something pleasant or at least tolerable.
Right.
And the way you do that is slowly, a little at a time. For instance, you just set a toothbrush next to them and let them look at it and smell it and so on and give them a treat. And then, as you gradually, put the toothbrush in their mouth, but not with anything on it or do anything, and give them a treat so that gradually they come to realize that, that toothbrush really represents something good.
A reward.
Exactly. So in Chihuahua, you can train them to tolerate brushing their teeth.
Well, yeah, and then again, I think that starts as they're a puppy because I can tell you right now, Patrick, we got Patrick he was a rescue. Patrick, not in a million years would he let it on. He had to do it. He had to go to the dentist or to the vet to get that done. There's not a chance, and you can condense it
Yeah.
ever. Not going to.
It is an issue with most dog parents, I think. Yeah.
And now, one of the things I read in your on your website, let's talk about diet. We talk about it all the time, but how important it is specifically for Chihuahuas too. What's weird is when I was looking at different things, we were talking the average length for Chihuahuas was way shorter what they put in what's on the internet than what my experience is. Generally, unless there's something like an accident or something, they live to be 15 to 20 years old typically. But when you look at what it says on the breeds, it says like 8 to 10 years or 11 years. That's not my experience at all.
No, and I've not read that actually.
Yeah.
No, they live, like you said, actually the average I think is 13, 14 years, but they have been known to live as long as 22 years.
Yeah.
My Chico was 17 when he died. So, yes, they live longer than most other dogs. Yes.
Yeah, because they're generally pretty healthy with a few exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
But except for the teeth, I think that's the bigger issue. But let's talk about you. And we don't need to get into a big detail. But one of your dogs had cardiomyopathy, and you end up changing the diet, which really gave him a better quality of life.
That is exactly true. Pebbles
Right.
was very young when she was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, which actually is just an enlarged heart.
Right.
And her heart in the X-ray took up her entire cavity. And that's when I started researching on veterinary medical school libraries and science studies and journals. And I dug deep into Chihuahua nutrition. And so I started, after I had learned exactly as much as I could, or as much as I thought I needed to at the time, learned how to feed them a balanced and nutritious diet with all the vitamins and minerals and so on that they needed. And I discovered in that research, by the way, that dogs generally, their bodies naturally manufacture, I'm going to forget the name of it.
Glucose?
No, it's something that I had never heard of before. And but most dogs their body naturally produces it, but not all dogs. Some dogs don't, and they have discovered or have come to believe that sometimes that may be the issue, that their body does not produce that particular, I think it's a hormone.
Okay.
Oh,
And here's the deal. If you don't get it on here and let me know before it comes out, I can put it in the notes for everybody anyways.
okay, great, great. Good idea. Okay, because I'd like everybody to know.
Yeah.
But anyway, through this study, I started feeding that to her. And like I said, she was young when she was diagnosed, and the veterinarians didn't think she was going to have a long life because of it. And um, when I started feeding her that, she was 15 years old when she died, which was way past what the veterinarians had thought. In fact, every time I took her to see her veterinarian, they would comment on, man, that is one tough little dog. And I think I finally convinced them that it was her diet, that I had changed her diet that helped, that, kept her alive all those years, I think.
Well, there's a lot of evidence out there. I've had a couple episodes with some integrative vets, and one person actually here in the Austin area that has a raw pet food company specifically for that, and what they've been able to do with that. So there's a lot of evidence out there on that.
Oh, and nutrition is just more important than you can imagine. And I don't think you want to get me started on manufactured dog food.
No, let's stay with that. Hey, you know what I want to talk about? Because we talked about this a little bit, because the very first Chihuahua I got was actually, I'd been in Mexico on business in Monterey. And the woman there was telling me my son was having some issues with breathing for asthma. And she said, oh, yeah, Chihuahuas really help with asthma. And it's been debunked. But can you get into a little history? And I've got a little side note on that one, too. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, basically, that's all it is it's a myth. I don't know exactly where it came from. Maybe someone had asthma and they got a Chihuahua and they felt better. I'm not sure.
Well, it actually goes way back because I did the research after when we talked about it.
Okay.
Well, here's the crazy thing for you guys. If you have a Chihuahua, it was a full on wives' tale thing, kind of like, the old, witchcraft kind of thing.
Exactly.
So anytime you have a Chihuahua, because they'll like cough and sneeze and breathe really hard. And what the thought is that the reason why they're doing that is they're taking on the bad asthma from you, and they're taking it into their body to get rid of it. That's where it comes
Yes,
from.
I had heard that.
That's the crazy part about it. That was pretty funny.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Chihuahuas are also notorious for having what they call backward sneezing. And as a Chihuahua parent, the first time you hear it, it's so scary because it sounds like they are
choking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know when I first got Chico and I'd heard that, I rushed him to the vet. I just was sure he was choking to death.
That's funny.
I used to tell people when I had Chico and Pebbles, I think I put those veterinarians' children through college. They were at the vet all the time. But anyway, and then I discovered that that's all it is. And basically it's like, they take in more air, too much air.
Well, they're getting rid of all that asthma in the air. That's what they're doing.
Exactly. It's a very common thing, and it's scary to people who don't know about it. And I've got a video about that on not on the website, on my YouTube channel.
Okay, cool. Hey, one thing I read too is about the old, and back in the days, the wild Chihuahuas could actually climb trees. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard that too, and no, that's not true.
Oh, it's not true?
No, it's not true.
I'm going, that's the coolest thing ever. Now
it would be.
Now here's one. I want to see if you know this. I read this, and I think it's one of the cooler things I read about them. They've been known. Chihuahuas have been known to actually wean kittens.
Hmm.
No, there's a bunch of stuff on there. So like they'll find like street kittens that don't have a mother, and female Chihuahuas have actually been able to wean kittens.
Um, like I said, you have to be careful where you look for your information.
Okay, well now here's your homework. I want you to do that research and tell me later on if it's true or not. If it is, it's totally cool.
Okay.
I love that idea.
I think that it has been shown that other breeds, not just Chihuahuas, but there's been other breeds that sometimes will do that. So I think it's just sometimes dogs will do that with kittens. I
Well,
don't
there's
know.
some logic there. I mean, I could see that logically it could happen. I mean, they're about the same size
Yes.
and all that. I think I hope it's true personally. I think I want it to be
Yeah.
true because I'm guarantee you after today when I'm talking to people, I'm going to tell them it is true. But anyways,
Well, I can tell you that I'm sure it's happened.
yeah. Well, I'm going to say it's common. Anyways, here's another little tidbit that I want to add in back to the Texas thing. For you guys here in Texas, there's actually a minor league baseball team in El Paso called the Chihuahuas,
Yes. Yes, there is.
which is really another Texas thing, just so you know.
I know it. I
Yeah.
know it.
Okay, so I want to go back and loop around again, and then we'll close this thing out here in a second. But back to the euthanasia. Do you think that the euthanasia, one of the reasons it is because they've been overbred, and these puppy mills in particular are not being able to sell them, and then they get them euthanized? Is that one of the reasons?
That is part of it. Yes, it's part of it.
What's
But
the other part?
well, I can tell you that, like every time a movie comes out, like Legally Blonde and oh, what was the other one? Chihuahua with Chloe.
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, anyway, our readers will know,
Yeah, yeah.
or our listeners will know.
Listeners and the readers.
Yes, exactly. But when those movies come out, the cute little dogs,
Yeah,
and people run out and get a Chihuahua thinking that their Chihuahua is going to be just like Chloe, or
yeah.
Bruiser on Legally Blonde. And then they find out it's not. And so they take them to the pound. But when people surrender Chihuahuas, the most often reason given is behavior issues, which is really sad, and another reason I started my blog because, if you know what you're doing. One thing too I wanna be sure and say is that Chihuahuas, it's extremely important that they be socialized, and that's true of any dog breed, but especially Chihuahuas because of the fear aggression. And even if you get an older dog, you can socialize them, meaning you gradually expose them, and like with conditioning training, you
Sure.
associate everything with something pleasant, but you gradually get them used to all different situations, all different dogs, and different people in wheelchairs. If you like to camp, then you have to expose them to that early, or condition train them to, or whatever.
Well, the thing is, with their smalls there, you can bring them to a coffee shop and bring them anywhere.
Well, this is true. In fact,
They're portable.
yes, they're very portable, and
Yeah.
that's another reason they're so popular too.
They also like to travel in cars. All mine, of the ones we've had, they love being in the car.
So do mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, they're great. And, when you're talking about it too, because, here's the crazy thing. My daughter, when she was going to school, she went out of state, and oftentimes, I mean, she had her car up there, but she'd have to fly home, but she had her dog with her, and she'd have to fly, and they fit under the seat, but they charge her for a dog on there because he wasn't a service dog. But I mean, they just go right under your seat. So they're really easy to travel with too.
Oh yes, they are. And car travel, yeah, they're very good travelers.
And you don't need a lot of food. I mean, they'll eat. They're pigs, by the way. They'll eat anything. They'll eat forever. Those dogs don't ever stop eating. They may be but a hand size, but they eat the size of as a Great Dane. If they could, they'll just eat until they pop.
That's true, and that's why so many Chihuahuas are so overweight. My 3 that I rescued, they all 3 were way, way, way overweight when I got them, and, they're all, I'm happy to say, at their healthy, happy, ideal weight now.
Well, I can tell you my Bella was overweight, not huge overweight, but she was overweight, and she ended up passing away in a car accident. It was a really bad thing, but she was overweight, but she was the happiest dog in the world. She was a great dog, and I just loved having doing it. Let's do this. I want to kind of close this up here a little bit. So, first off, can you give everybody your website address and how they can get onto the blog and all that too, so that everybody knows how to do that?
Absolutely. It's ChichisandMe.com. That's ChiChISAND.me.com. Yeah.
And then if they go there, they can find the blog and sign up for the blog. That's how it works.
They don't even have to sign up. They can. I've got subscribers, and so they can sign up to subscribe to my blog, and then they'll get occasional emails with extra little tips and advice and suggestions.
So if they go to the website, that's where all your new information is generally.
That is where it is. And there's a menu at the top that, where they can, if they're looking for something specific, and there's also a search thing.
Yeah.
You can search at the top.
Yeah.
For any subject, you just use any keyword. So yeah, you can find anything you want to know about Chihuahuas there.
Then on your YouTube, I know you don't do it all the time. Is that ChiChis And Me too?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you can subscribe that way anytime you have something up for you guys that are listening. If you don't listen to the podcast on YouTube, because we're on there too, but you can subscribe. And if you do that, it'll come up all the time anytime you have something new on there.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay.
Please do that. And I'm going to add more videos.
Cool. And then for everybody listening too, I will have the website in the description. If you go to the description, social media, all that kind of stuff too. So now to my favorite part of the time that everybody listening is their least favorite part of the time. Today, instead of me telling a joke, I know you're cringing. We got somebody that's the glutton for punishment to tell her joke. So Linda, you tell me your joke, and I can't wait to hear it.
Okay. What's a Chihuahua's favorite way to travel?
What is a Chihuahua's favorite way to travel? Which way is that?
First class only, baby, inside a purse.
That's great. I love that one. That's really. Oh, one thing we didn't bring out that I read real quickly just for you guys that are listening, if you still are listening. Chihuahuas are really sensitive to cold. They don't like being cold, but their feet are really sensitive. So you have to be real careful when you take them outside on even hot or cold, but cold too. They shiver all. They don't like cold.
Very, very true. Yes, very true. And they can be little sun worshipers. If they'll seek out wherever there's sun and lay in it.
Anyways, I added that in there. But anyways, for everybody else that's listening out there, I'm always looking for people to tell jokes. So if you've got grandkids, your kids, nieces, nephews, whatever, you want to tell a joke, I promise you I get back to everybody, always. And also, if you got a great idea of like this, Chihuahuas, I really wanted to get this one. But if you have an idea, I'll follow up with you. I really do get back to everybody. And you can contact me with jokes or whatever information at mkyle@thefurrealpodcast.com. And I'll get back to you. And please do, because I'd love to have other guests on. And you don't have to be tortured with me telling the joke. At least we had somebody else telling the joke versus me today. But lastly, Linda, thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate it. This is one I've been wanting to have for a while, and I'm glad you were able to take the time to do it.
Well, thanks for having me. And there's a lot more I could have talked about, but
well, we'll do a follow-up in 6 months or something like that. And hopefully
that would be great. I'd love that.
And yeah. And also for you guys listening, if you've got questions for Linda or questions for the future episode, send it to me too. Again, at my email, or you can go to her website as well and do that. But lastly, to everybody that's listening, please keep following, pass the word out, tell them about this episode. Follow us on all the different things you follow them on. But most importantly, thanks so much for listening from the bottom of my heart. For real.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, markakyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.